Hi guys, this is just a quick tutorial on how to control buttons and how to make buttons and get them working in your animation. You're going to be doing quite a few of these for our DVD menu, and they can be a little daunting at first, but you'll see once you've done a few of them, they're actually quite straightforward. So what I have here in this timeline is I've got 3 layers. I've got one for my stars as my background, I've got one for my buttons, and I've got one for my titles that are up here. Okay, it's only 10 frames long. I've made it 10 frames just to put a bit of space between them, but frame 1 on the button layer has an image that I've called, well, I put a name on it, button 1. At the moment it's regarded as being a group, and the reason it's a group is that it was a red little oval shape and I put the words button 1 onto it and joined them together. On frame 10 I've got the same sort of thing, but it says button 2. Okay, so again, it's called a group. Now they look like buttons, but they're not buttons until we make them buttons. And by doing that, we turn them into a symbol. The symbols are very straightforward. So if I right click on this image and I go down to convert to symbol, it gives me some options, right? I can turn it into a movie clip symbol, a button symbol, or a graphic symbol. Now the button symbol will make sure that it responds to button click. So I click on button and I want to call this button 1 underscore BTN, and that's just convention. It's lowercase, we use an underscore, and we call it BTN, which is short for button. Now I'm going to copy that, that's its name. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it in here where it says instance name. Now I'll be going through all of this in class, but this is just to show you how to do this. So if you want to do these at home, you can just create them yourself. Okay, so there we go. So we've now called that a button. It's an actual bona fide button, right? It's not doing anything and there's no instructions for it yet, but it's a button. So I go up to frame 10 and I do the same thing. I right click on this, I go convert to symbol of type button, and I call it button 2 underscore BTN. I'm going to copy that. So that's its name, and I'm going to paste it into where it says instance name. Now I'm going to explain all of this in detail. Okay, so now what I have is frame 1 has a button called button 1, frame 2 has a button called button 2. So what I need to do is I need to put some code in that's going to tell ActionScript to jump between those two, right? So you see there's a little A symbol here and a little A symbol here. If I right click on the A and go to actions, you'll see there's a tiny piece of code in here. Now I'll also explain this in the Deadpool video tutorial, but I'm going to do it again here just so it's very clear if you're watching this on its own. Right, so what this bit of code is doing is it's listening out. We've named the code the same as the button, so button 1 underscore BTN. So that's telling ActionScript that whatever happens after this name is relating to that button. Okay, now it says add event listener, so it's listening out for an event. What kind of an event? A mouse event. What kind of mouse event? A click. So all that says is listen out for somebody to click that button, and then when it does, call the function go button 2. Okay, now what's a function? A function is a name for a single or a series of instructions. So this is basically like somebody saying when somebody does this, do that. So, but we give it a name, go to button 2. And the reason we give them a name is because we may have many of these and they must be uniquely identifiable. So underneath we have the function that says go button 2. So what we're doing up here is saying if someone clicks on that button, do this, and down underneath it says function go to button 2. So this is basically the function, and the actual instruction is held within these 2 brackets. And what does it say? Go to and play button 2. Now button 2 in this instance, when it's in here, refers to a frame label. So you can actually give an actual individual frame a name or a label, so you can jump to and from it, and ActionScript can identify that frame amongst all other ones, right? So what this is doing is waiting for us to click on the button, calling a function. It's then going to follow the instructions of the function, which are jump to a frame label called button 2, right? Okay, so let's look down here. So down here what we have is, so that's our action script for button 1. If we go up here and we bring this back in, we'll see that there is almost identical code here. This time it's listening out for button 2 underscore BTN. The function is called go to button 1. And the instruction is go to and play button 1. So these are our frame labels. So let's set up our frame labels. We know that we want this one here to be called button 1. It's all lowercase. So I'm going to click on that frame and go over to name and type in button 1. And that's it. We click on our other frame and we type in button 2. Now let's bring the code back in and see if it makes more sense to us. So I'm going to click on button 1. So up here, button 1 underscore BTN, listen out for a click. If necessary, or if it is clicked, call the function go to button 2. And what does that do? You go to and play the frame label called button 2. Now you can't see it here at the moment. I'm just going to put a frame in here so you can see it. There you go, button 2. I'll put frames into all of these just to even up the timeline. Okay, so there's button 2. So that piece of code is going to jump to this frame. Okay, now let's look at button 2. Button 2 underscore BTN, listen out for a click, call the function button 1. What's the button? The function button 1? Go to and play the frame label button 1. Now I know this might sound a bit confusing. We've got buttons and we have functions and we have frame labels, but they do very different things. The button is the thing that you interact with and click on. The function is the name for the instructions that it's going to carry out, and inside that function are the actual instructions. So in this instance, what it's in both cases it's doing is go toing and playing. So it's going to go to that frame button 1 and play it. Now in this instance, that frame button 1 doesn't do a tremendous amount. So we need one more thing to make this all work, and it's not on either of these frames. We need to make sure that when we get to these frames, that we stop on the frames. Because if we don't have a stop there, what will happen is it will just keep playing the frames over and over and over again in a quick cycle. And we'll see a flash, button 1, button 2, button 1, button 2. So I'm going to put one on here as well. And the stop is the simplest piece of code. Okay, so this should work now. When we arrive at button 1, it should stop on that frame, listen out for someone to click the button. If someone clicks the button, it activates the function go to button 2. And what is the function go to button 2? Well, it's in between these brackets. It's go to and play the frame label button 2, which is here. So we end up on button 2. What happens then? It listens out for somebody to click the button 2. If that happens and somebody does click it, it activates the function or calls the function go to button 1, right? And the function go to button 1 is within these brackets, and it's go to and play button 1. Now that should be it, okay? So I'm going to close the action script and I'm going to run the animation. And our error is, I don't mind showing you guys these errors. It can happen to anybody. Okay, so let's see what it actually says. Button 2 underscore BTN. Okay. So that's actually really handy. If you look at the code, you'll see that I'm trying to call this button here is called button 1 underscore BTN lowercase, and this one here is called button 2 underscore with an uppercase B. I'm actually really glad that happened, because those simple things can mess up an entire animation. So we have to make sure that the name of the button, as we've called it, lowercase, and the name of the button in the action script is also lowercase. If it's out by one character, if it's out by one underscore, if it's out by one anything, it won't work. So let's try it again. No errors. Okay, so we're on the first frame, we click on the button. It brings us to the frame with button 2. We click on that, brings us to button 1, brings us to button 2, brings us to button 1. Okay, you get the idea. Now, I know that kind of messed up there because I had the name of the button wrong, but that's a good thing to learn early on, because you have to make sure that if you're going to ask ActionScript to listen out for the click of a button, that you're giving ActionScript the right name for that button. It would be the equivalent of you going into, or you telling someone, go on in and get John, and they go in looking for John, but there's no one in the room called John, but there is someone called Peter. So when you calls John, Peter doesn't look around, and that's what happens in ActionScript. It calls a button that doesn't exist, and then it just crashes, or you'll get some kind of error, or it'll flick back and forward. Okay, so that's basically that. We'll be doing a lot more of this, but that's just to show you basically how it works. Any questions on this, let me know.